Welcome to HomeWord. I'm Jim Burns. You know, some speakers, writers, maybe even podcasters, they kind of don't like to answer questions that people just shoot at them. Well, that's not me, okay? I honestly love answering questions. Now, I don't always have the perfect answer. Sometimes I don't even have a good answer, and I'll tell you that if I don't. But today we're going to talk on this podcast about doing life with your adult children, but in a different way. We're going to answer your questions. I have hundreds of questions. I looked through them the other day, and I'm just in shock how many questions we get. Never dreamed that when I wrote the book, Doing Life with Your Adult Children 6 years ago, that I would spend the rest of my life on a daily basis answering questions about doing life with your adult children. And, I'm the last guy to leave a speaking engagement because I want to take personal questions. And it fills my cup. Now, we're not going to do personal counseling today because this is going to be quick, question after question. Maybe a little coaching. I hope it's cheering someone on who is looking at an issue, and maybe we'll look at it from a different angle. I hope there's a lot of hope in this as well. And at this point in my ministry, by far, the most questions coming to me are questions about adult children straying from their faith. Okay. Like I said, 6 years ago, when I wrote the book, Doing Life with Your Adult Children, it never dawned on me that the book is still on the Amazon bestseller list, and it's been that long. So anyway, as we look at this, and some of these questions that we're going to take on today's podcast, I think it could be helpful, not just for those of you who have adult children, because really I tell people when they have 2-year-olds that part of the job is to help them become responsible adults. They're not thinking about that at 2, but truly it is to help them become responsible adults. And so we parent that way, okay? And if you want more help and you haven't read my book, Doing Life with Your Adult Children, Keep Your Mouth Shut and the Welcome That Out, then I suggest you pick one up. You can do it at HomeWord. You can also get it on Amazon. They're both really, it's cheap right now because it's selling so well. They just keep it like that. There's 9 principles in this book, and the principles are from unsolicited advice, is usually taken as criticism, to dealing with helping or enabling. Are you helping or are you enabling your kids? Dealing with in-laws or outlaws, boyfriends, girlfriends, finance, failure to launch. Even a principle on grandparenting, which I love, by the way. Lots of good content. So if you're interested in that, you can pick that up. It's called Doing Life with Your Adult Children. Keep Your Mouth Shut to Welcome That Out. Maybe you don't need to buy the book because I think I just told you what the book is all about. HomeWord also has an amazing course. And it's the topic that a lot of churches are using in small groups for that age group. And they are loving it. So I'm thrilled with that. And today, our illustrious producer, Mike Segovia, and he is a great producer. But this time he's going to be on the other side of the mic, and he's going to take these questions and he's going to throw them at me. And Mike is a good friend. He has spent his entire career in the broadcast and podcast world. And not only is he one of the finest producers out there, but I really do, as I said, consider him a friend and a colleague. And my thanks to Mike Segovia, for joining us today. You always join us because you're always here, but you're usually not in front of a camera for YouTube. And there you are. Hey, good to see you.
Hello, Jim, and hello, YouTube family. Coming to you from Colorado. Jim, I can hear a storm coming in. It's going to start hailing, so things are going to get crazy here.
Well, it's
So,
74 and sunny here, so that's
of course
it
it
is all the
is.
time.
You're in Southern California. Does it
Yeah.
ever change? I don't think so.
No, but it's funny. I used to do radio, as you know, and I had an interview every Wednesday on the Moody Network in Chicago.
Okay,
And
yeah,
I
yeah.
would come on right after the news and the weather. And it was always the weather. And then I would come on and they'd say, "Hey, Jim, it's great to have you here." And I go, it's 74 and sunny. It's not every day 74 and sunny.
Right.
But, it is nice here in SoCal. And one day, after about 2 years of doing this every Wednesday, the host said, "Hey, it's not 74 and sunny. You have depressed us," because it would be, they would say 8 degrees, snow flurries. They would
Oh,
say,
yeah.
it's 88, humidity is at, 99.9. But I thought they knew I was just kidding. They didn't. And their team would go, that one said they were looking for jobs in Southern California because they wanted to be in that kind of
Oh,
weather. And I was just messing around with them. Of course, it's not going to be
yeah,
74 and sunny every day. So
yeah.
anyway, that was kind of a fun thing. But thus, we already have digressed. I want us to talk today about doing life with your adult children. But you and I talked about this in a different way, where you throw out some of the many, many, many questions we get.
Oh,
They're not
yeah.
easy questions. Wow, they're tough. And I
Yeah.
don't have perfect answers on them, but I do want to I want to bring up, we got to stay in the messy middle. And this, as you'll see really quickly when these questions come in, is, it's messy. Being a parent of an adult child is not always easy. Every adult child doesn't stray, but a lot of them do. And most parents are in shock and awe that that has taken place. So, Mike, take
Yeah,
it away.
yeah, absolutely. Let's get into it. We got a lot of questions here, so let's get going. This first one says, Jim, our son just moved in with his girlfriend. My heart is broken. He was a worship leader at our church until COVID, and now he rarely attends church, and his girlfriend has been a bad influence on him. My husband is so mad, and he wants him to cut him off, not have anything to do with his girlfriend, and basically punish him by having no relationship with him. Wow.
Hmm, hmm.
I'm not on the same page. I'm not happy about his choices, but I don't see shunning him as the right way to handle it either. Jim, what are your thoughts?
Yeah. Well, that's a tough one. I hear it all the time. And I'm actually going to be on the side of the mom this time because, your heart is broken. Obviously, you
Mhm.
want hope. You want them to make better decisions. It doesn't sound like the worship leader is making really good decisions. But I don't think by shunning them or by cutting them off or by not talking to the girlfriend, I don't think that helps. I think
Hmm.
what you do is you stay in the story. A lot of times in situations like this, Mike, and especially kids who have a background like he did,
Yeah.
they'll go through a tough time and they'll make some silly, goofy decisions. And then unfortunately, now it's their testimony that they came back. But I think you
Right.
stay in the story by being the most influential person in their life, being the cheerleader, being safe, and they know how you feel. I mean, I say to moms all the time, maybe every week, do you, and you've heard me say this, do they know what you believe? Yes. Do they know how you feel? Yes. Okay, then stay in the story. Now, what's interesting about this is accepting them and being a part of their life doesn't mean approval. See? And so I think parents need to hear that you can accept them, you can actually show love to them, but not necessarily approve them. I was
Hmm.
talking to you right before the podcast about our house. It flooded, and so now we have these, construction guys all in there.
Yeah.
Today's construction guys they were brutal. You know what? I
Oh
can love
man.
on them. We don't agree. We don't use the same language. They were dropped. I don't think the F bomb had ever been dropped as much in my own home as I was there. But you know what? That wasn't going to help them if I went, you're terrible people. Get out of the house. What I
Get out
knew,
of the
and they
house.
were
Right.
actually really good at what they were doing. They were taking out our floor, um, to the shock of my wife. But
Yes.
anyway, I think with our adult kids, we've got to stay in the story.
Mm.
It's hard. I'm not saying it's easy. That's why you need a circle of support. That's why you need some help. But it's not. You're not going to get the help from those kids. What you're going to do is stay in that relationship. The I guess the other last thing I would say is the girlfriend. She doesn't have to be your best friend, but actually, you're gonna sometimes get to your son through that girlfriend. So be kind. Lead with love. That's what Jesus did. Jesus didn't
Mm.
agree with when people a prostitute. Jesus didn't agree with tax collectors. Jesus didn't agree when people were money changers, things like that. But he still led with love and he practiced kindness. Except when he was so mad. I love this about Jesus that we see him. The story of the money changers in the temple.
Oh
He was
yeah.
not a happy camper. There's going to be times when we're not going to be happy campers, but primarily he led with love. He practiced kindness, and that's how you win them back.
Yes.
So again, stay in the story, and let's see what happens 1 year, 2 year, 3 years. It's the long haul that matters. And I think that's an important question because and funny that we let off with that because I think that might be one of the most often asked questions or something about it. The other thing I would say, I just said I was at the ending, is the husband and the wife are not on the same page. Maybe what
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
need to do is the Bible says, where there is no counsel, the people fall, but in the multitude of counselors, there is safety. Talk to your pastor, talk to somebody, listen to this podcast again, and then dialogue. And they made that husband may disagree with me totally. I understand that. I'm not saying I'm always right. I just think that's the way we do it. If you want them to stay in the relationship and be safe, even though you're not approving of their behavior. There you go.
No, I think that's totally key, Jim. And I was going to mention that the husband and wife need to kind of get on the same page there
Yeah.
somewhere. So that's
Yeah. I
great
mean,
advice.
I mean,
Yeah.
Kathy and I agreed to disagree with even with our adult
Oh yeah.
children, with some of the goofy stuff they did. They didn't do horrible stuff, but we all have that. And yet we just had to sometimes agree to disagree. I get that. But the more you're together, If you're
Yes.
together 85% of your time, then you're speaking as one voice. And what I've done at times, to be honest, the Bible says submit to one another. And so if Kathy had an opinion on finances with the kids, I didn't totally agree with it, but I go, it's not going to be a game changer. I would just kind of submit to her input, and then Kathy would
Mm.
submit to my input if we were talking about something else,
Yeah,
schooling or things like that. Yeah.
sure. No, that's great. All right, we got another question here from one of our faithful listeners. And they said, we loaned our daughter and her husband a lot of money to put a down payment on their dream house.
I know this question. This is a hard one.
They were paying us back and all was good. But about 6 months ago, they quit paying us back. Wah, wah, wah. Nothing was said and nothing has been talked about. We know that they were going through a tough time. We are concerned about getting our money back. And also, we co signed on the loan. And now we are wondering, are they paying their house payments? What advice can you give us?
Yeah. Well, Mike, this is a tough one. And again, I hear a
Oh,
lot of this. For one thing, with these
yeah.
parents, they need to understand that at least 75% of parents help their adult children. And this is a huge help. And how cool if they have the money. But now it's a problem because, it's a money pit, and they help their children get into something. I have a feeling without having a conversation and kind of creating a contract. So if they've been not paying them back for 6 months and they don't know why, and they hope that at 6 months they
Mm.
still are hoping that the mortgage payments are being done. And by the way, they may be, because if they co-signed by 6 months, they'd be getting letters
Oh,
probably,
yeah. 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 Yeah.
and their credit would start going down. So, that maybe is hopeful. But I think you have to have a sit down and do it when you're not angry. This is the thing. We tend to, it leaks out when you're angry. And I think it's better for us, not in the heat of the battle, but at a time when we say, hey, we want to have a conversation. So we've noticed that, in the last 6 months, we haven't been getting paid. How are you guys doing? What can we do to alleviate this? Or do we need to sell this house? Because
Mm.
again, we can't carry you for this much. And then really put out something, but don't do it in anger. Okay, if they're flaking, then you have to be a very strong parent and say, these are our boundaries, these are our expectations, and if that doesn't work, then let's rethink how this is going. Now, for the parents, they may have to realize that, it depends on the housing market, depends on where you live. We were, you know, laughing about where you live in
Yeah.
Colorado, where I live in California, and in
Yeah.
California, the housing market isn't going up like it used to, but it's still kind of going. There's other places where it's not. You're going to lose money on this deal. Did that couple already have that conversation on a personal level? Kathy's mom and dad had a motorhome, and we co-signed for them years and years ago. They're both passed on now, and then he died. And then the mom just sort of froze and panicked. And I'm not putting her down, but she quit paying. And so, I had to have that conversation with her. But I had already
Hmm.
said to Kathy, if this goes south, and it could have with her parents, if this
Yeah.
goes south, are we okay? Because the relationship with your mom is more important than the fact that we could lose
Mm.
thousands of dollars, which we
Yeah.
did.
Mm.
And you know what?
Mm.
By us having that conversation ahead of time, that helped us, because I think, she would have been mad. I might have been angry, but you know what? I'd already went, if I'm going to sign this bill, I'm paying for this motorhome or whatever. I hope not. And then it turned out that we sort of did for a while. But I don't think you let this go, because if you let it go and you don't say anything,
Oh,
now you're
yeah.
going to have bitterness,
Oh, yeah.
resentment, incredible frustration, and now it's going to affect them. Think about how they already feel that they haven't paid. They know they haven't paid for 6 months. So if they're having trouble in their house, or they're having trouble in their relationship, or they're having trouble in their jobs, or whatever it is, so try to come alongside of them, help them, but don't do this by just being silent and then all of a sudden getting mad. That's not going to work. So I think the best thing to do literally is to sit down, have that power. Every power doesn't go well, but just say, you know what, we love you and we're committed to you. However, here's what we need to do, and have some pretty solid boundaries. Boundaries are a good thing. If you don't have boundaries, sometimes you just get walked on sometimes by your adult kids, sometimes adult parents of walk on the adult kids. So boundaries are a good thing. I had somebody say fences are good neighbors, and that makes sense. We've got a crazy barking dog next door to us, and I'm really glad we have a fence, because that dog would bite me and kill me. So again, that fence is good. So some boundaries are good.
Yeah, and I would think, Jim, even before going into that, if you're going to lend some money to your
Right.
kids, that
Right.
have a discussion.
That's good.
Here's our expectations. If something should go awry, can you let us know? Um, you know, there could even be a contract written up.
Yeah, honestly.
'Cause,
Yeah. I
man,
mean, I
that
absolutely do
just
that
gets
stuff.
so tricky, Jim. You
Yeah,
know?
my dad did that. My dad
Oh
had
yeah.
more money than some, but we had an engine blow. Kathy and I were driving on the way to Princeton to go to grad school, and my VW engine blew,
Of
and I
course, there's
didn't.
a VW. Of
Yeah, right,
course.
and I didn't have the money. Now, of course, to get a whole
Yeah.
new VW engine was like $1,800 at the time.
Right.
So
Right.
dad sent me. I was kind of offended because I said, "Dad, I'm in big trouble. I'm just starting school. We don't have any money, blah blah blah." And he said, "Oh no, I'll wire you the money. You can tell how old I am and
Yeah.
how dumb I was." And so he wired me the money. I paid for the engine. We had a wonderful time in the area, some small town outside of Chicago, while they rebuilt it or whatever. And then he sent me the contract, so to speak, and he even charged me interest. He wasn't doing that because he was
No,
selfish. He was doing that because he wanted his son to be a good steward of
I
money,
love it. I
and
love
I
it.
really, really appreciate that. We did that with our daughter Becca. She was kind of getting off a little bit of the subject, but she was going to move back into our house, and she said, "I'll be there for 2 months." It ended up being 2.5 years because she went and got her master's in clinical psych, and so we became the roomies again. And we said, "Hey, look, you got a good job." She was actually working for HomeWord. We got a good job, so we knew how much money she made. It wasn't good money, but it was money. And I said, and we are going to we're going to charge you this rent. So I still remember we charged her $200 a month, pretty good deal.
Yeah.
And when she left after 2.5 years, we gave her $3,000. And we said, "Hey, we never wanted this money." Oh, gosh, I don't know why I got teary eyed. I was thinking she got teary
Mm.
eyed. And this is going to help you get into your apartment and whatnot. And she goes, "Well, no." I go, "Yeah, it's not our, this was always our plan." And I'm so grateful. She paid every month. She did it on time.
She's being
Awesome.
diligent.
So so we didn't care about the money. What we cared about was that she had the responsibility to take care of that. And
Yes.
I think that's what these parents
Learned.
need to be thinking about too.
Totally. She learned. That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's awesome. Great story. Great question. Fantastic answer. All right, we continue with these questions here. This one is: both my adult children are mad at us because we keep giving them our opinions about how they're living their lives.
Right.
They both have left the church and they both have voted exactly the opposite of how we voted.
You hear this every day.
Oh gosh.
Okay.
This is causing a lot of tension in our family. Help.
Yeah. Well, I'm laughing, and they would hate it if I was laughing if they were talking to me, and I still would smile and go, "Oh my gosh, do we hear this all the time?" Well, here's principle number 2: unsolicited advice is taken as criticism. I don't think when our kids become adults that it's our job to tell them who to vote for, and I don't think it's our job to tell
Mm,
them to go to church or not to go to church. Now, again, in other types of conversations, I think we can have some of those kind of conversations. But like in our house, we've got one of
mhm.
our kids is just, I mean, that we cancel out each other's votes, right? So, so it's the rule: no political talk at Thanksgiving,
Good,
'cause
good.
she can get hot.
Mhm,
Today, I had breakfast with her today,
mhm.
and I just love this, you know, oldest daughter of mine. She's very strong on lots of things. We go to the same church, um, but Kathy asked me later, did you talk about politics? And I go, no, never came up. Well, that's because I've already set boundaries that we weren't going to do that.
Yeah.
So she knows where we stand. We know where she stands. We're going to love her regardless
Mhm.
of that. That's a minor thing when you start looking at some of
Oh,
the
yeah.
other questions that we may even get. I don't know when it starts talking about, gender, changing and transgender stuff and,
Mm,
drugs
mm,
and estrangement and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think they're in the wrong. I think they have to, your job as a parent, you're fired as a day-to-day parent. And now you
mm,
become their mentor. You'll never become
mm.
their mentor if you give them unsolicited advice because they don't see it as good. They see it as that you don't see them as all grown up. And so zip it and have those conversations with somebody else. Do have the conversations, that's important, but have the conversations with people within your, again, you'll hear me say it over and over again, circle of support, the people around you who you can talk with.
Mm,
We
that's
got
really
time for
good.
one more, and then we'll take a quick break.
Yeah, absolutely. This next one is this. We raised our three children with a deep faith. They willingly participated in youth group and camps and worship nights until college. Now they all have left the church, their faith and left faith and seem to live totally against the values they were raised on. We feel so much sadness and guilt. What can we do, Jim?
Yeah.
I'm sure you hear this one a
Yeah.
lot. I do.
No, what did you
I'm
pick
sure you do.
every one that we get
Gosh,
every day, it seems like?
this is I know.
No, this it's heartbreaking, and I
Oh my gosh, Jim.
it's interesting, Mike, in the book Doing Life with Your Adult Children, I only did 6 pages of it on straying from faith,
Mm,
but
mm.
we get more questions about straying from faith than we do any of the others, meaning actually more with those than all the others combined, and we get questions every day. So this is the big deal. I literally turned in a book yesterday called When Your Adult Child Strays, uh, Trading Heartache for Hope. And in there, I do a whole section on deconstruction and all that because,
Oh,
again,
yeah.
it's so good.
Mhm.
But again, they're not going to like my answer. But I think there's a lot of things they can do. But first of all, some of the things they can't do is they can't be preachy and they can't be lectury because when you push too hard, you're going to push them away.
Yeah, we go
So again, I think you put them in disequilibrium by showing them love and by showing them care and by coming alongside them. They know what you believe and they know how you feel.
Mhm.
And and I've quoted this on the podcast before. Actually, I've quoted the actual quote. This time I'm going to just adapt it. But we shouldn't spend our time telling them how wrong they are and how right we are. What we should do is spend our time being the light that they are. It is so bright and so beautiful that they want what we have and will come back. One of the things we're seeing with young adults, and I sense that these are young adults, but one of the things we're seeing with young adults is they are kind of coming back to the church. In fact, I
Yeah.
just read a huge thing on belief, and it's actually out of the New York Times. And they're studying Pew Research, which is great research, all secular, but they're saying this new generation that had left the church is now wandering or wandering back, but they're not wandering back to the church that they came from. Typically they're wandering back into they want community. They're not coming back because of some great preacher. Like we move church to church sometimes because of the speakers, preachers, but they're wandering back because they look for community. And they're a great thinker. His name is Frederick Buechner. He said homesick for faith. And I really truly think that if we are consistent in our witness with our kids and our
Mhm.
love with our kids, that we'll start seeing them come back. A lot of times when they get married, when they make babies, or if they're all of a sudden they're going, I'm really lonely and I've met somebody at work. And so what can you do? You can pray for them. And this
Mm,
sounds so
yeah.
spiritual, but when you pray for them, you pray that God will bring people into their life. God cares for them and their spiritual life just as much as you do. And sometimes, to be honest, if they sort of deconstruct a little bit, that's maybe not all bad. Christy always said, I had to disown my parents' faith to own my own faith. And in a
Mm,
sense, I don't use the word deconstruction in a positive way. I use reformation. But she had to reform her faith and not just imitate us so that she could have even a stronger faith. See, so today we were talking about her kids, and she's changing her whole schedule around because our church's vacation Bible school is at a time when she was going to be gone, and now she's going to be there because
mhm.
that's that important to her. Well, that
Yeah.
wasn't the same kid. Christy's almost 40. Okay. And so I'm old. um, but Christy's almost 40, but her kids are at a stage where she sees that as a prime importance in her life. But that wouldn't have been the case when she was young. That wouldn't
Mm,
have been, she wasn't, being a horrible person or all that. She was really being quite polite to us when she kind of deconstructed a little bit, but she had to reform her faith. And then I also think that, I think we just have to be patient because there's going to be an opening sometime. And I know some of the questions, and you may even have some of those that are even tougher, where they won't let you talk about faith. They won't let you take your grandkids to church and all those kind of things. But with this one, I think they just have to stay in the messy middle. Now, again, what I'm asking them to do is really tough because it's easy. If I'm a conflict avoider. So as a conflict avoider, I don't want any conflict. So what I need to do is lean into whatever they're going through and and just love them in the midst of it. And periodically you say, "Hey, we got a great thing going on in church. If you want to come, we're going to go to a marriage conference if you guys want to come. My kids are all married now. So those kinds of things, and you never know. Camp
Yes.
is something that they'll do. A retreat,
Oh, yeah.
come and
Oh,
hear us,
yeah.
stuff like that. Yeah,
And our listeners out there have to remember that God loves them more
yeah,
than you do. And
yeah,
the Bible says in John chapter 6 that no one can come to God but that he draws them.
yeah,
God wants them to come back.
yeah.
And so one thing that you said, Jim, and I know it's so Christianese, as we say,
Yeah.
pray them
No.
back. I've talked to so many friends, Jim, that I meet for
Yeah.
lunch that have prayed their kids
Yeah.
back to the
Sure, sure.
kingdom.
And sometimes our prayers are asking prayers, that's supplication, but
Yeah,
other times
yes.
it's
Right.
relinquishing, that's a prayer.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's waiting, sometimes it's thanking God for our kids even before they make some good decisions. There's a lot that we can do in that. There's a scripture in Colossians that says, pray, and be watchful and thankful. So, I
Mhm.
think sometimes we have to be watchful. Hey, we need to take a quick break. You're the producer. We usually break about 10 minutes before this break, but we're going to take a break because neither one of us are paying attention to that.
No,
And
it's too
so,
good,
let-
man. It's too
so,
good.
so, so let's do that. And when I come back, we'll answer. I think a question you're going to ask me is on estrangement, which is huge. 27% of families have an estranged person in that family. That is tough. And again, I think in the break you're talking about being involved, people hearing more about the book and the course, and of doing life with your adult children. Keep your mouth shut. Welcome that out. More to come. Jim Burns and Mike Segovia on the other side of the mic asking the questions. We'll be right back. Hi, Jim Burns here. I am so excited about what's going on at HomeWord. Some of you are just learning that things are changing around here, and one of the most exciting things changing is our new president, Marcus. And Marcus, tell us what's going on with HomeWord.
Yeah, thank you, Jim. Really appreciate it. So excited to share with you, give you a glimpse of what God is doing in this new season at HomeWord. And it's a blend. It's a blend of new and tried and true. And our mission right now is how do we take these 4 decades, these 40 years of ministry, of resources, of principles that God has been changing lives throughout the nation and beyond, and expand that, but also tether it to a younger generation. And the way we're going to do that is through a blend of tried and true resources and principles and events, as well as new initiatives. And I'll start off with the new. On the new side, we have a new website. We are rebranding. We've got new staff. We've got new faces and new voices to our growing social media presence, and that is wonderful. But also on the tried and true side, we've got a Refreshing Your Marriage retreat that has been an amazing, impactful event. We've got our conferences like Trainer for Trainers, and our resources like our books that we're going to continue to write and expand and change lives. Speaking of which, Jim, share with us the latest update of what's going on in the book world here at
You
HomeWord.
got it. And I'm excited about your leadership, and I'm excited about where we're going at HomeWord. It's going to be pretty incredible. We've got a book, Doing Life with Your Adult Children. We have other books, of course, but that's still on the bestseller list after 5 years. Even this month, it's on the bestseller list. And now there's a new one that's going to be coming out called When Your Adult Child Strays, Trading Heartache for Hope. And I'm doing this book right now, and there's going to be a course with it. And we have other books on sexuality and things like that that are really, really making a difference all around this world.
So, with all the things going on right now at HomeWord, here's what you can do. God is putting in our heart this desire and this plan to expand our Refreshing Your Marriage conference that I recently attended, and it helped my wife and I have a breakthrough that God was working in our hearts for a while. But beyond that, I saw other couples experiencing the same thing. So we are going to expand our Refreshing Your Marriage conference, take it to other cities, and we want to be able to not only help make sure that happens, but also those that can't afford it, that need to be resourced and some scholarships. So we want to make sure nobody misses out on a chance to get their marriage refreshed and to draw closer to the Lord. So I'm asking you to make a special gift above and beyond to support that. Thank you so much, HomeWord.
Welcome back. This is a great time. I didn't know how this Q&A thing was going to go, but I'm actually feeling it. I'm feeling the vibe, Mike. You're doing a great job. The questions are hard. The questions are important. I don't have all the easy answers, but let's keep going. Let's go.
Jim, this is so necessary. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. I was just telling you a little bit, Jim. I go to lunch with a lot of my friends. I'm in my late 50s now, and we have adult kids, and we have these questions. So all of my friends are going to be listening to the show. I'm telling you.
Both of them?
Next,
You have 2 friends? I'm one of your friends, so I'll listen
uh,
to 'em.
3. Let's not forget about Elijah.
Okay,
All
okay,
right.
Elijah's your friend. But he doesn't
Yeah.
have a dog. He has a baby.
Yeah. Okay. Well, he's still my friend. All right. So Jim, what experiences led you to write Doing Life with Your Adult
Yeah,
Children?
yeah. Well, you
Curious.
know what? It was, yeah, I wish I could say deep research and, whatever. It was desperation because
Mm.
my own kids were, at that age where they were, saying they were adults and not acting like adults or whatever. And kind of funny, a guy, friend of mine asked me to speak at a conference, about 4,500 people on this subject. And I went, no, I don't have, but don't put me on that because I want to sit in the front row and listen to whoever you get. And he gets the greatest speakers in the country. And he calls me back about 20 minutes later and he said, my wife says you need to do this. We want you. So
Mm.
anyway, long story short, I ended up reading 3 books that were only okay, to be honest.
Mm.
And I gave a talk, and at the general session that I did, they said, Jim's going to be doing something on doing life with your adult children. This is way before I wrote the book, and we've moved rooms. And I thought, oh great, there's going to be like 4 parents who are going to sit at a table. Now we've moved us to a smaller room, and it was a bigger room, and it was
Mhm.
packed. And I left 10 minutes for questions. It took me 2 hours and a half to get out of
Oh
that
my
room because
gosh.
when I said some of your kids are violating your values, they're straying from your faith. We didn't see it coming. I said, at least that's what my friends say. And I heard an audible groan. Now, people may groan when I speak, but I had never heard it like this before. And I
Like
went, we're
that.
onto
Yeah.
something. And so from that day on, I went, I need to keep working in that field. And so it's been one of the greatest pleasures of my life
Oh,
to
wow.
communicate with people on it. And, a lot of what I'm doing at HomeWord is in this area. I'm writing, like I just said, I just finished a book on straying when adult children stray. And it's a great conversation, and I want to give parents hope. But that's why I did it. Yeah, I did it with that. Has I never write for business. I write for passion, and this one I wrote for passion and the burden
Mm,
that I feel from parents. So anyway, there you go.
absolutely. Okay. Next question. Our daughter is completely
Hmm,
estranged from us.
yeah.
I call, she doesn't answer. I text, no response. I don't even know why she has walked completely away from me.
Mhm.
Jim, is there hope?
Yeah. Well, actually, there is hope, but it's not easy. And I say to
Mm,
parents all the time, on this one, you're going to have to take the lead. Now, I wish I could dialogue with this woman because there could be all kinds of reasons, but sometimes it might be her. She might be too pushy. She might be, um, actually, she might be too defensive. If the kid comes along, she may not have apologized. I had a guy say recently to me, I'm estranged from my son, but he wants me to apologize and I have nothing to apologize for. And I thought, usually you have something to apologize for. I mean, I could apologize to Kathy 24/7, 365, even though most of the time I think I'm right, if you know what I'm saying, right? So with
oh,
estrangement,
yeah.
I always say to the parents, take the lead and
Mm,
do a lot of listening. And if you can, come with empathy. Um, if there's any way possible, you can apologize for something. And again, even acknowledging their, even though you don't agree with their view, but say, I can see where that's coming from. Sometimes the number one reason for an estrangement is with dad. Interesting. Dad and mom
mm,
got a divorce. Dad left the house. Dad
oh,
didn't
yeah.
care. And you know what? Sometimes those dads need to just come back and go, I totally understand. I'm sure you feel abandoned. You don't know the whole story behind the story or whatever. Maybe they do. But, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. The words "I'm sorry, will you forgive me" is huge in estrangement. And then I think you tiptoe back into the relationship. So your first meeting and those letters that she's writing in text, good to write a letter, make it really short, but never make it about yourself. Make it about them. I just want you to know how much I love you. And I care for you deeply. And then since this woman has the address because she said she's written letters, then I
Yeah.
think you send the Starbucks coffee card on a regular basis. The always acknowledging birthdays. If there's grandkids in the picture, of course, you know just all over the place with them in terms of sending things. Sometimes people send that back. I get that, but I think we have to take the lead and be the adult in the room. And so a lot of times when I'm looking at parents, I'm going, no, you're doing that wrong. Because again, they're being pushy, they're being defensive, they want to get it right, they want to go tit for tat. Don't do that. Enter back into the relationship. When you have an estrangement, this is for the long haul. The goal is to not be estranged. So it's like money. People tell me this. I guess I get this a little bit. I'm not a finance guy, but if you have compound interest, you make a lot of money on it because you put something in the bank and eventually it makes money. You put it in the stock market or whatever, you make a lot of money because it just keeps building. That's the way with this. The compound interest is not telling them that you're right and they're wrong, because that's what we do with estrangement a lot of times. And we keep digging a hole. What I think we need to do is, again, make it about them. And, I'm sorry you feel this way. Even if you can't apologize because they say you did something and you don't think you did, then I'm so sorry you feel this way. And it's so important for me to have this relationship with you. And I'm willing to not even talk about it if you don't want to talk about whatever they're into or whatever. I think it's harder with estrangement when they've done something where they have really rejected you. They've rejected you not just in person like this lady, but they rejected your values because they are, living in a lesbian or a homosexual relationship, or they're walking away from God, or they hate God, or they're any of the things that bug us like crazy. We have to accept them as our children. That's what God does. God's not going around shunning people. God's going around
Oh yeah,
sharing and showing love to them.
yeah.
That has to break his heart. It's hard to be in that
Oh
messy.
yeah.
It's easier to walk away. I was just with a guy who called his daughter, who is living in a lesbian relationship, said, I finally got them to come to dinner. And so we sat down, I opened up the Bible and I said, this is an abomination what you're doing. And I went, well, how'd that work out? Well, they left. And I get it. I mean, I would
Oh
agree
yeah.
more with him than I would with them. But the point being, you don't start with that. What he should have said, it's so great to be with you guys. I've missed you so much and I love you so much. Now, that's not saying that I agree with everything you're doing, but to start with, something as strong as even using the word abomination, that's not going to go well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Don't use
again,
the abomination of desolation.
right.
That's
So with this
right.
woman, what I'm saying is my heart breaks for her. I'm so sorry.
Oh yeah.
And a lot of times the parents are more right than the kids. And kids, today's Gen Z and millennials, especially the younger generation, they are cutting their parents off. Sometimes they're even getting it from counselors. But what I'm saying is, no, keep the relationship open. Now, here's one last thing about them. She
Yeah.
doesn't know why. I'm
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
shocked that people do this. I'm on a show called New Life Live. It's a call-in show. It's 2 million people a week listen to the show,
Mhm.
largest counseling show in the world. And I'm on it, once a week probably, and average. And I'm amazed how many people call us and say, I'm estranged from my child, but I don't know what it is. Try to find out what it is, but don't push them on it. But you need to know what's going on in order to rectify that. But
Yeah.
that's not in maybe the first conversation. The first conversation is about, the coffee that you're drinking. I mean, it drives parents nuts, but the coffee that you're drinking, or, what she's up to, or things that you want to get right to the point. Don't do that because you're going to push them more away. So again, you're
Mm.
building the relationship with baby steps. And I've seen really good things happen with the hope from an estrangement. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the last episodes that
Yeah.
we just released was with Tina Gilbertson,
That's
and
right.
she talked exactly about this, Jim. So
Yeah.
you guys check that out. It's a great
Yeah, if
episode.
there's
And
estrangement, Tina is one of the top, I would say the top
oh,
2 leaders in estrangement, and, I thought that was a great, lovely conversation, a great conversation. Neat lady.
incredible.
And I love her book. It's called Reconnecting with Your Estranged Child.
Yeah,
There's
incredible.
something to that.
And it's dear to my heart because we have a dear friend going
Yeah,
exactly through this right
right.
now, 5 years. She hasn't talked to her
Oh,
child, and she doesn't know why. And she's actually doing a lot of things that you're talking about, just sending the cards,
yes.
praying. There's been no contact, but just staying consistent. Merry Christmas. I
Right.
love you. I pray that you and your wife are well, that kind of stuff,
Yeah,
So,
right, right.
yep.
Hard,
So
hard.
it's tough. It's tough. Okay. Wow. This one, Jim, even the first okay, just
Can
wow.
you give me some simpler ones? And we're gonna do another show. Can you give me some simpler ones in the
No,
next show? Yeah.
I will not.
Thanks, thanks.
Are you
Appreciate it.
ready? Listen
Yes.
to this, Jim. Here we go. First 4 words. I feel so alone.
Mm,
I'm isolated from my busy adult children.
mm,
I
yeah,
didn't see it working out this way.
yeah, yeah.
Jim, what do you say to
Well,
that?
I mean, for one thing, I wrote a whole book on this on empty nest, and I call it the empty nest syndrome, which
Mhm,
is you're depressed, you're anxious because you didn't see it coming this way. But the fact is that our adult children are they're now adult children. They are moving on. Our job is to help them become not only responsible adults, but to move into adulthood. And they're not responsible for our emotional health. And a lot of
mm,
times, we think, well, they're now supposed to come in and, be around us and be our best friends. They may not be our best friends. So, what I would say to this lady, and I would have deep emotion, I would have deep care, I would have deep empathy, but I would kind of say you're going to have to get a life outside of your kids. That doesn't mean that you don't have relationship. Like I know somebody who she had this and then her expectation was so high. I said, why don't you
mhm,
start small? Why don't you get together? Because they lived in the same, city. So I said, why
yeah,
don't you get together every 2 weeks for coffee? Or why don't you on Sunday night invite them over for pizza?
mhm,
Have fun, have some major serious fun and then
yeah,
say, hey, do you guys want to do this again? And now she does a every couple of weeks with all of her adult kids. Um, if you guys want to come, come. We're going to have Sunday night. I'm providing the pizza, and we'll have fun. You can stay as long as you want. You can stay as little as you want, or you don't have to come because I know you're busy. And you know what? Most of them come. And what she says, sometimes she sits back and just watches her kids, the siblings relate now, and she's with the grandkids or whatever, but she goes, you know what, I have found meaning in this even though I wanted them and I want them to be around me longer. So I think
mhm,
that's what you do. I'm sorry she's sad, I really am. It's hard.
yeah,
I
yes,
even wrote in the book, Finding Joy in the Empty Nest, I miss their messes. They left and I was
mm,
so mad because they would always leave their towels on the floor and they would not clean the dishes, all that kind
gosh,
of stuff.
that's real
And then all of a
stuff,
sudden
Jim.
and then
Yeah,
all of a sudden I'm like, wait, I'll come and
mm,
I'll clean the 9 cups that you didn't wash that are in your bedroom sitting. Where are the cups? Oh, they're in
mm,
Becca's room or they're in Heidi's room or whatever.
mm,
So, I think it again, I say to the parents, don't expect your adult children to do the heavy lifting when it comes to your
mhm,
emotional life and even your emotional maturity. That's for somebody else. And so find your small group, find a friend that can walk with you, find a friend who can pray with you if you're a Christian. But that's a bigger thing to do. And it doesn't mean that your sadness will go away, but it means that it will start going away because you'll have another part of life. The people who do well in the empty nest are people who move on. And I say one of the principles in that book is when your adult children move on and have new experiences, follow their lead
mm.
and have some new
Yeah,
experiences.
no, I remember, Jim, when I was with you at one of these conferences, you and I were, in a recording room, and we recorded an interview, and you were telling me and one of my producers a story about how you and Kathy were at your kitchen table, and then
Oh,
you
yeah.
can hear the sound of the football
Oh,
stadium,
yeah.
from the high school, and you
9
just look
years.
at Kathy. Yeah, 9 years ago, "I miss going," and I remember you looked at her and said, "Shouldn't we just go to those games? I mean, why can't we just go to the
Right.
games?" And why can't you? Why can't you go
Right.
enjoy
Well,
that
you
at
can go
that
to the
moment?
game periodically,
Exactly.
but you do have to move on. The illustration was we went to the games because, 3 kids were at every football game, and so we went. They were cheerleaders. I have girls.
Right.
So and I didn't know, there were times when I'm like, "Oh, man, I got another game." But
Yeah.
sitting there, we also realized, sure, we can go to a game sometimes. I mean, my goodness, we love that kind of stuff. But we also needed to make sure that we were gonna find meaning in our second half. Games are won in the second half, not in the first half. So what we had to
Yeah.
realize was that in our second we need to lean into our second half and go, what is our life going to look like now? Because frankly, couples, and I realize there's a lot of single parents who listen to this broadcast, but
Yeah.
couples, they are going to spend more time probably in the emptiness than they did with their kids in the home.
Mm.
When you think about that, that's like crazy. I mean, I've been married 51 years. Well,
Wow.
I didn't have so
That's a
so we're
lot.
in that mode of our kids were late bloomers because they didn't leave the house. They kept boomeranging back. But but the point being is when you think about that, you got to lean into it, or that's why marriages are dissolving and things like that because they're not working on their marriages. And or they don't have a life. Like this woman. She described it beautifully. My hope and prayer for her is that I don't know when she wrote
Yes.
this. I'm sure we gave her an answer, but I hope and pray that she's
Yes.
moving toward health and wholeness by making sure that she's getting the attention, the friendships, the things like that she needs.
Absolutely. And just a little side note, if you have a pizza night, no pineapples, sausage, pepperoni, olives over the whole thing. No pineapples, Jim. I'm telling you, kids
You
won't
need,
come.
we have a lot of people who listen to this podcast in Hawaii. So, Mike, they are shaming you right now.
I apologize to you. No pineapples.
Yeah.
Okay, Jim, man, we've done a lot here. We're
No
going to close
spam.
out,
No
but
spam. That's Hawaii's people do that too.
there you go. No spam. Listeners, we've done a lot here. Jim's going to close us out, but I'm encouraging you to stick around because at the end of the show, Jim's going to answer a bonus question. So don't leave and click off after the even closing music. Stick around for
Okay.
Jim's
You
last
don't have to
question.
tell me. We're doing this. This is kind of fun. I have no idea what you're talking about. But anyway, bonus
It's
question.
going to be done, Jim. There's going to be a bonus
Okay.
question.
Well,
Jim,
this is
close
a
us out.
wrap. I'm interrupting my producer. This is a wrap. So many great questions. Honestly, those were great questions, and we get these every day. Okay, and like I mentioned, since we get these every day, we want to be able to come alongside you at HomeWord as well. We're going to go next week. We're going to do part 2, so you can tell your friends. A lot of people who don't subscribe, perhaps, and I hope you do subscribe. They may not know about this, so you're going to send them on because this happens every week. They'll send on something like this if this is where their kids are at. And so, send them on, but also know that there's going to be another one next week. And if you want more information on the book or the course, both in English and Espanol, you can go to homeword.com. And I hope you will subscribe to the podcast and let us know what you think. Hey, you know what? You can also send us topic ideas. We get these periodically, and I think we almost always try to fill that need, unless you're really weird. And every so often we get a super weird one, but no offense. I read every email that I get. And my thanks again to Mike Segovia for the great work as a producer and today as a co-host. My thanks to Elijah Hamilton here in our studio in Dana Point, California, for making the YouTube channel so good. He is awesome. Both of you are awesome. And again, until next time, I am Jim Burns, and we've been talking about answering questions about doing life with your adult children. And Mike said there's going to be a bonus question.
All right, Jim, bonus question time. How are people using the book and the online course to help make a difference in their own families?
Mike, that is so marketing-ish. I thought it was going to be a question about somebody who was thinking about suicide, and now we're dealing with how you can buy the book again. Anyway, I know we do that sometimes, and that's a great thing with the podcast. What people tell me all the time about HomeWord too is that we don't do that. They say you don't do it enough. So yeah, I'd love to say it. What's amazing is that all over this world, and I mean the world, people are picking up the book and they're reading it, but they're also in small groups. So we have 2 courses. One is a seminar format, me speaking, and the other is me in a small group with 3 people, kind of this deal. They were asking me questions. We were in a studio. Really cool. And, people do it individually. They do it as couples. They do it in small groups. Yesterday, Kathy and I were at a store, and a woman said, "Your voice sounds familiar." And I said, "Oh, probably wanted in a post office or some kind of funny thing." And she goes, "No, I just heard you were going through your course at my church, and it's changing all of us because we're parenting our adult kids wrong." And so I love that. So it's great. So we at HomeWord, we have a lot of great resources. We have resources on this. I mentioned in this podcast, the empty nest. We have, resources on empty nest, a lot of things for parents who have the older kids, but we also have a lot of programs for parents who have the younger kids. Next week, all week, I'm going to be at a place called Forest Home, and I'm speaking about younger kids. How do you help your kids navigate the internet and social media? How do you help your kids with dealing with sexual integrity and all those kind of things? So HomeWord has it all. So I suggest to people, come to homeword.com, and you'll see some great stuff. And this is just one part of it. But yeah, thank you again for listening. And Mike, thanks for tossing it to me so I could talk more about the material.